Alright, in this lesson we'll explore how to filter with string methods. And as we know by now, in order to filter, we're going to have to generate a Boolean series. So we'll look into some string methods that we can use to generate a Boolean series. Let's begin by executing our code from our previous lesson. As a reminder, we do have that drop NA bit here in order to take care of that last row of null values. It's not present any longer, so we're ready to go. So let's say I want to extract any rows from this data frame where the position title contains the word water. Now I don't care where it occurs, at the start, at the end, at the middle. As long as the word water is there at some capacity, I want to extract that row. So I know I'll have to be working with the position title series, so I'll begin by extracting that. There's my series of values. And before we call any method to check whether a value is contained, a really good best practice is to utilize a method like lower or upper. What that does is normalize the data across the board. Now in this case we are working with a data set where all of the values are already in uppercase, but we can't always guarantee that. If we're working with bad data, we may have rows where all the letters are going to be uppercase, all may be lowercase, some may be in between. And the problem with that is that if we search for something like water in all lowercase, but water is written in uppercase in some of the row values, Pandas is not going to find an exact match, because remember, all of these matches are case sensitive. So we have to have a common normalized way of looking at the strings before we look at any further methods. So what I'm actually going to do here is do .str.lower. That ensures that everything is going to be lowercase across every single value in my series. In case there's some row in these 32,000s that secretly has, all lowercase or all uppercase or some combination, I've now normalized it so everything has all lowercase, and now I feel safe searching for water in all lowercase. So the method that we want to use here is called contains. It's going to be .str because we're still using the str prefix even when we're method chaining, and then the method is called contains. Contains takes a single argument, and that's the substring that we want to search for. That's what we want to look for. And it's very similar to the very first argument in our replace method. Here, however, the contains method doesn't replace anything. Rather, it just returns true if it's able to find that substring, and returns false if it's not able to find it. So for example, if I enter water, as long as my string contains water, for example right here, it's going to return true. Otherwise, it's going to return false. So you can see, as promised, true was returned here because water is contained there. Now that I have a Boolean series, I'm all set to filter. So I can set this equal to a variable called mask, and then just pass mask between square brackets after Chicago. And now you can see that we've pulled all the rows that have water somewhere in it. We can see water is at the very beginning here, but here in the foreman of water pipe construction, water is in the middle. You'll also see that all of these position titles are still in uppercase because we haven't modified the original position title column to be all lowercase. We just temporarily modified it so that we can use our contains method and give it water in all lowercase and guarantee that we could find it across all values. But that's one example. Let's do another one using a couple other available string methods. So contains, as I mentioned, will look for that substring anywhere within the string. There is also a complementary starts with and ends with strings method, and those are only going to look at the beginning or end of the string. So for example, if I once again want to pull my position title column, and I only want those values or those rows that have water at the very beginning, not just anywhere, but only at the beginning, so it has to start with water. I once again begin by normalizing with .str.lower, and I'm now going to do .str.starts with, all lowercase, no spaces or underscores, and to this method I'm going to give the exact same argument. So any values that begin with water in all lowercase are going to return true, and anything else is going to return false. So that's value I remember seeing where it was the foreman of water construction. That's now going to return false because water is in the middle there. That value does not begin or start with water. So here we have another Boolean series. This time, rather than storing it in a variable, I'm just going to directly pass it in my square brackets. That'll be a good review for us. And here we can see that all of these position titles start with water. So anywhere it occurs otherwise is going to be left out. Let's do one more example with ends with. This got me pretty interested because here we have a position that ends with the letters IST, and there's many different words that end with that combination. So let's extract all the rows where the value in the position title column ends with IST. So once again, we begin by extracting our series, which is position title. We have to normalize it to play it safe. And now let's do the ends with method. We still have to have that str prefix, then dot ends with, and now let's do IST. That's going to give me a Boolean series. We currently don't see any trues, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist. Let's store this to a variable. I'm going to overwrite what's currently in mask, and now I'll do Chicago mask to extract those rows, and there we have it: psychiatrist, specialist, machinist, specialist. So we can see that that ends with method is effective for looking at the very tail end of a string. So those are 3 available string methods that return a Boolean series. We have contains to look anywhere in the string. We have starts with to look at the beginning, and ends with to look at the end. As always, when using string methods, we have to use that .str prefix in front of it. And of course, after we get the Boolean series, we do have to pass it within those square brackets to actually extract those rows that fit that criteria from our original data frame. So that's a little bit on how we filter with string methods, and in the next lesson, we'll dive right back into learning some more additional string methods.